Stories from Parliament. Magna Carta. England, February 1215, and all is not well. Across the country, from north to south, the voices of angry barons can be heard. The cause of their anger? One man.
King John. He demands even higher taxes to pay for his futile wars in France.
And if we do not pay up, he takes what he wants. We have to find a way to stop him raising taxes whenever he chooses.
And taking our land. Or stealing our
He
land.
promised that all this would stop.
Oh, he always promises. Yeah, well, his promises mean nothing. We must do something to make him keep his word.
Well, we are the Baron Lords of England, yet he shows us no respect.
He can arrest us and hold us prisoner without a fair hearing. Yeah, our widowed sisters and mothers can be forced into a marriage just because the king orders it.
Our rights and freedoms should be protected by law.
Oh, King John believes he is above the rule of law. Then we must have new rules, which even a king must obey.
And it is not just the barons who believe it is time to act. The Archbishop of Canterbury himself intervenes.
He may be above the laws of men, but no one is above the laws of God.
Pray silence for Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury.
My lords, you have come here today from all corners of England. Tell me, what are your concerns? Robert Fitzwalter, Lord of Dunmow Castle, speak first.
My lords, when our king raises taxation yet again, he offends the people. When he seizes lands that do not belong to him, he offends the barons. And when he seizes the wealth of the church, he offends God.
Richard de Clare, Earl of Hertford, you wish to speak?
My Lord Fitzwalter is right, but what can we do? The king cannot be reasoned with. He's too powerful. Then we must find a way to limit his powers. And how will we do that? There are no rules which a king has to obey. We will make new rules. He won't listen to us. He refuses to recognize our rights. We have no voice. Then we must declare our rights and find a voice. We must send a clear message to the king. He must agree to limit his power. And if he does not agree, then together we will raise a great army. We will take London and leave him no choice.
But even when he knows that the barons are taking action, King John continues to raise taxes and seize lands which do not belong to him.
Your Majesty, the rebels advance towards London.
Really? Let them advance where they like. I have nothing to fear from Robert Fitzwalter and his rabble.
They gather support, Your Majesty. The closer they get to London, the stronger they become.
I told you, I have nothing to fear. The people of London will stand by their king.
I'm not so sure, Your Majesty. Fitzwalter calls his troops the army of God. I believe the people of London are on his side.
I don't care. I don't care whose side the people are on. I will not submit. No king of England will ever obey rules laid down by traitors.
A messenger from London, Your Majesty.
Approach, speak.
Your Majesty, Fitzwalter is in London.
And?
The people cheer him.
They cheer a rebel traitor who dares to stand against his king?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Perhaps, Your Majesty, it is time to talk to the rebels.
Never. I am the King of England. I do not talk to traitors.
But King John will talk. He has no choice, and on the 15th of June, 1215, at Runnymede near Windsor, the two sides meet. The barons present the king with a document. 63 rules have been written down on parchment. This will become one of the most important and famous documents in history. People will call it the Great Charter, Magna Carta.
force widows to marry against their will.
Agreed.
You will not raise taxes without the agreement of the barons.
Agreed.
No free man can be imprisoned without being charged.
Agreed.
Every man has the right to a fair trial.
Agreed.
And 25 barons will watch you carefully to make sure that you obey these rules.
Agreed.
King John places his royal seal on the document so that the whole world will know that he has agreed to obey these new rules. Of course, this document doesn't put an end to the quarrels between kings and barons. Some of the rules are quickly changed, and many are broken or ignored. But on the 15th of June, 1215, something important has happened. Magna Carta has shown for the first time that it is possible to lay down rules which even a king must obey. Some of those rules apply to this day.
On June 7th, 1628, King Charles I approved the Petition of Right. The Petition of Right is a significant English document that lays out some rules for the king. It recognizes 4 principles of government. First, no taxation without Parliament's consent, meaning that Parliament must agree to the taxes. Second, no imprisonment without legal cause. Third, no quartering of soldiers in times of peace, meaning a family should not be forced to have soldiers live with them at their expense. And fourth, no martial law in times of peace. Martial law is the suspension of regular laws. Charles, like other kings before him, firmly believed in the divine right of kings, the idea that God had chosen him to rule over others, and because of that, it was his right to govern others with or without their consent. This idea encouraged Charles to rule by prerogative, meaning he attempted to govern without Parliament. He thought governing was his prerogative or his right. Parliament set out to overcome the idea of the divine right of kings and rule by kingly prerogative by invoking their own right to self-govern. Now let's go back a little. Charles inherited the throne in March of 1625. During his reign, he continued to collect taxes by royal prerogative. He continued to collect taxes even though Parliament passed a law in 1625 saying that he could only collect taxes for 1 year. Parliament felt Charles was overreaching his authority when, in 1625, he forced people to give him loans or face imprisonment if they refused to pay. Parliament became angry that Charles was taking money from the people without their approval, and because anyone who refused to pay was put in prison without trial, a direct violation of the Magna Carta. The Petition of Right was the answer. Rather than King Charles governing only by his rules, Parliament wanted to enforce some rules of their own, rules for the king. The petition was drafted by Sir Edward Coke, and passed by both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, which was amazing because the House of Lords usually supported the king. When Charles heard of the petition, he sent a message to the House of Commons forbidding them to meddle with the affairs of state. In other words, he was telling them, do not govern. To allow the king to collect any future taxes, Parliament forced Charles to sign the Petition of Right. However, the king insisted that the petition was passed in a way that caused doubts as to whether it was even valid law. So, he claimed, it was granted by his grace, not by the right of Parliament. Although Charles signed the Petition of Right, he continued to govern the same way, setting the course for the English Civil War 15 years later. The Petition of Right was one more step in the evolution towards self-government in society. Now, if you were to examine the Petition of Right, you would find 11 sections organized in a somewhat tidy fashion, although it may not seem so tidy as it was written in Old English and can be a bit cumbersome to read. But you will find two consistencies in Sir Edward Coke's language. First, he uses existing laws and refers to the Magna Carta to back up his points. In other words, he identifies historical precedences from primary sources. Secondly, he explains how the actions of the king have violated the precedents and therefore is guilty of disturbing the common good, showing therefore that living by the Petition of Right would ensure a quality society. The Petition of Right may not have worked to stop King Charles from abusing the people, but the four key provisions in the document regarding taxation, wrongful imprisonment, quartering soldiers, and martial law are still in force in England almost 400 years after they were written. In fact, those provisions can be found in America's Bill of Rights too. The Petition of Right is a pretty impressive piece of paper.
Hey, I'm back! Okay, listen closely. I don't have much time and I've got a lot to say. I think you can already tell that teachers' rules are going to get oppressive very quickly. They probably already have. Well, history has some examples of another way. The rules don't have to come from the ruler. Yes, we do need someone in charge, but we can self-govern by developing our own rules for the person in charge. It's just like the Petition of Right in the Magna Carta that you've just learned about. I know you probably want to get rid of the director and teacher, but you do need someone in charge, and you still need a teacher to teach you, give you a grade, and pass you out of the class. Can you think of a way that you can reduce oppression without eliminating the director or teacher? Think about it for a second. I mean, really think about it. There are two things to consider. First, where does the right to govern come from? John Locke said that the equal right of the individual to govern themselves come from nature. We are each born with the right to self-govern. That leads us to the second thing to think about. If we are born with the right to govern ourselves, where should the rules to govern come from? From the director or from you? Right now, your classroom governing system is based on the director's teacher's rules. Perhaps he has been given some authority as the director to create rules, but is he the only one who can create all the rules? Can your teacher create some rules? Can your classmates create some rules? Can you create some rules? Perhaps rules coming from more than one source would create a more balanced system. Now, listen closely. During a video that you will watch in class, I've managed to sneak in some instructions for a different assignment. We call these alternate assignments. The instructions will scroll across the bottom of the video. You have the choice to either take notes on the video or take notes on the instructions for the alternate assignment. There is a risk. You will probably get a bad score on the quiz after the video, but it should be worth it. You will only have about 10 minutes to do the alternate assignment, so you might want to decide now if you want to attempt self-governing or just stick with teacher's rules. After all, they are safe and secure. I've got to go. Oh, I forgot. If you choose to do the alternate assignment, you might want to get a majority of the class to do it too. Good luck. See ya.